All right, thanks for tuning in. I don't do a lot of live streams anymore. There's really no point. Me reporting other people's stuff is just kind of stupid, and it's just, quite honestly, yeah, it just seems like everybody's like regurgitating everybody else's information, and actually me regurgitating other people's information, thinking it was okay, kind of ended badly for our main channel. But I've been researching this since the Bundy Ranch standoff, going over it again and again and again, and tracking this back into the history of the United States. Now, of course, the initial 13 colonies over here, okay, over here on this side of the map, are completely BLM. BLM doesn't have any issue over there. They're not even involved. There is the Department of Interior, Forester Service, stuff like that. You know, we got a guy down, yeah, just literally down the street, cut down some trees, and he's in a that were in the way. They were actually, he runs a farm, they were in the way, and he cut down a couple of trees. They were a little too close to the creek, and he's in a lawsuit with the Department of Interior because of waterways and water rights. You know, it's all about water rights. And then you go over here, and here's the Mississippi. Now, this is the map of the United States in 1850. This is the Mississippi. Okay? And you'll never hear any BLM gripes and complaints this side of the Mississippi. But see, something happened after 1850. Hold on, I gotta turn something down. My radio station was in my ear and it was distracting as hell. So anyway, Minnesota never got included in this. Iowa, Oklahoma was just considered full Indian territory, and Texas is still the Republic of Texas. Although they are a state and have statehood, they are still basically their own country. Could succeed at any time. California is a little bit different in the way it was established, but all of this other space that you're looking at right here, Oregon, this unorganized territory, Utah territory, the Great Basin, New Mexico territory, everything in here that creates New Mexico, Arizona, Colorado, all this, in order to become a state, things changed with the treaty to become a state. You can do this research yourself. I'm not going to go into any great depth here because I'm going to expect that my listener is smart enough to go look this up themselves. You know, I can sit here and run my mouth dry for no reason. Because you're either smart enough to do this research once I point you in the right direction, and if you're not, well, then you're just part of the Darwinian issue. You know, the big problem right now, we'll go over here, let's look, this is 1850, and then right after war, you know, remember, Lincoln wanted to go back to the greenback and get away from the banker's dollar. Remember that? From your history class? I don't know. Did you have a history class? I'm not sure of the full age group of who's listening to me at the moment. But just between 1850 and 1890, we suddenly have all of our states. Now, in order to, after, I think it was 1860, after the Civil War, in order to get statehood, the treaty was a whole bunch different. It was a lot different. And it did allow federal lands to be bought, or excuse me, it did allow to open lands to be bought by the federal government, which makes me wonder just how much legal stand the patriots like the Bundys and all those have. Because everybody talks about the Constitution, but actually you need to look at the state constitutions of each state. Because a state constitution supersedes the federal constitution, period. That was part of coming into to getting statehood, and the federal government was manipulating the state constitutions at the time to allow, because they were at the time back here, they were borrowing a lot of money from England, France, and Germany. A lot of it to fund the Civil War, and then again at the Spanish-American War, and then again in World War I. They were using lands out here in this area as collateral to borrow money to fight wars. So, you know, the truth here might not be what you think it is. And the goal out here might not be what you think it is. Because everybody's talking about the Constitution of the United States, but again, a state constitution under the law of the Union actually supersedes the federal constitution. So maybe we should start getting a look at state constitutions. You know, every state, every state in these United States has its own state constitution, and we are a union. The federal government might run the country in its infrastructure, but actually each state has its own constitution, and that's what it operates under. And I think a lot of people are missing this. And I mean missing this in a big way, because it might be very useful in the legal arguments of these guys that are sitting in prison. You know, I'm in Kentucky myself, and the Kentucky Constitution almost looks identical to the federal Constitution. And what they do with the, you know, at a federal level, you can operate in your state under your federal Constitution without any involvement of the federal government, but the problem is you lose all your funds that come from the federal government. So, that's why they bow down, cow down. And I'm not sure if anybody's seeing what I'm talking about here. Because all of this irritation that is going on out west is in these very spots right here. And then we need to add something else that is going on right now. The Chinese have dumped the dollar. They fully fully backed the yuan with gold, which means there's about 7 trillion in there's about 7 trillion in US bonds out there floating around that are worthless because they're backed by Federal Reserve notes. Kind of figures I get the hiccups when so over time, and I'm not thinking it's going to be a very long time, a lot of these countries, 7 billion worth, and all of these bonds being completely collateral backed buy land in this area, excluding California, are going to start cashing these in. Now, we can't print enough money, and we can only print so much money, I guess, so fast, I don't know. They're going to start calling in and foreclosing on these properties that the BLM was completely designed for. The BLM is and has never been anything but an offshore company out of Puerto Rico that manages these lands, withholds these lands for debt collateral. It's always been that way. So when all this money comes home to roost and hyperinflation sets in, and then we just can't pay the bill anymore, all of these lands, of course, will be foreclosed on. And then we're going to have a new problem. We're going to have a new country, basically split at the Mississippi, excluding Texas and Oklahoma. And maybe these 3 green states right here. I don't know. But everything beyond here will probably end up being owned by foreign countries, 90% of which are China. So that's kind of what I got to say today. So you folks out there that are listening to me, paying any attention at all whatsoever, please do your research and understand that the history of the United States and the treaties of how to become a state are very important. And state constitutions override the Constitution of the United States across the board, and all of the treaties made beyond this line were very specifically engineered for Oregon, Washington, California, Utah, all of these places. Now here, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, all these states. Some of the states nobody, the government doesn't care about. It doesn't grow anything. It doesn't make anything or whatever. But there are a lot of mining states out here, especially out west. Everything beyond this Rocky Mountain line is full of gold and silver and uranium. It's very valuable. It's good collateral stock. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. You can listen, you can not listen, or you can do whatever the hell you want to do. I don't care. So I gave you a starting point, and that's all I'm going to do. I'm not going into any kind of depth. You can go look this up yourself. It's not that hard to look up. If you don't want to look it up. If you don't want to research it, well, then I guess you're just the same idiot as everybody else. Darwin was right. And when Darwin comes to call, that's your problem, not mine. So go look it up. Go research it. Pay attention. Because it's right here in your face right now. Anyway, good night, folks.